I mean, while they come down here, I'll just let you all know, we got a record number of submissions this year, like off the charts. And every year there's kind of there's some trends that we see. So last year we saw a lot of sketch comedy, actually. This year we kind of saw some trend of, sort of thriller, horror, a little bit of violence. So we thought we would just go with it and put together a program that was thematically united that way. Not all horror, but like kind of dark and fabulous, loosely interpreted, from kind of genre films to more experimental films. So I hope you enjoyed it. So welcome to our Q&A floor. I'm gonna pass the mic over here. And here, I'll get to the other side. So maybe, can you all introduce yourself really quickly to the audience so we all know who you are and which film?
Yes, my name is Allan, Tran. I wrote and directed Poser.
Hi, my name is Wang. I'm the writer, director, and one of the actors of Color Me Wicked.
Hi, I'm Victoria Park. I was an actor and producer of Color Me Wicked.
Yes. So I guess I'll just start with you, Allan. So we actually played one of your films before, Valley, and it's a very, very, very different film. It's kind of golden hour. It's coming-of-age friendship film. And so I was really curious about this very different take, stylistically, content-wise, kind of everything about it. It's a little bit more genre. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, in terms of the style, it was just fitting for the genre that this was in, but the kernel of this idea was that I just wanted to, tell a story about coveting the life of another, but just in the freakiest way possible. So, and this is the style that came about, and it takes place in the milieu of fashion photography. So, we really pushed the whites and made things feel as kind of dreamy in a way, but also again freaky. So yeah, that's how it came about. Yeah.
Great. And so Chanel, a similar question for you. I noticed your film sort of defies categories in a lot of ways. It's like seems like a craft film, paint and sip, and then a dance film, but ultimately also serial killers. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you balance those different kind of, they're not quite genres, but like the different flavors?
That's so funny that you bring that up, because this is a conversation that Victoria and I have been having quite recently. It's also, we were having trouble when we were in the submission process for film festivals how to categorize our own film, because for the both of us, this was a romantic comedy. Like for us, that's how I see it. I see it as a complete love story. But yeah, I think it's really interesting that you bring that up, because I personally don't know how to categorize it myself, and I actually think that's okay. I think it's I have my version, and then we put it out into the world, and then you have your own version and how you see it. And so I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I really like that it is open-ended. So it's up to you guys to decide what it is.
I guess on a related note, if this was a romantic comedy, and yet there are serial killers, so how did you decide to add that kind of part to the characters?
God, I don't even know where to begin.
I mean, we could start with paint and sip. Why paint and sip?
Okay, so when I was first developing this story, an image came to me. There were two people sitting across the room from each other. I didn't know who these people were, but I knew that they were sitting across from each other, and that I knew one person was watching the other. I didn't know why, and I just had that image really strongly. And then over time, as I was sort of like expanding my daydream, I realized I was in a paint and sip shop for some reason. I also don't know why. Like a lot of times when I'm making things, it is sort of me trying to process, why does this want to come out of me? But going off like the serial killer element, for me, I'm using sort of, this is so hard to say, I'm using violence to sort of elicit what it's like to be so in love or so seen by somebody. So like my character Lizzie and her character Eileen, they're two opposite sides of the same coin? What is that word? What's that turn of phrase? Two sides of the same coin. They both feel like outcasts in their world, and like to meet somebody who understands you and who gets you, that's really special and can be rare sometimes for people who feel like on the outside and on the margins. And so I really wanted to create like a love story where it's like, oh, I'm seen for who I am and all my weirdness, even if that means my weirdness is that I'm a serial killer.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of a extraordinary dance scene. It was almost, I think one programmer called it sapphic in some ways, and wildly abundant and full of, inexpressible like joy and desire and like finding each other. I was curious, Victoria, what it was like to dance, because this was such a narrative moment. It wasn't just dance for dance sake. This was sort of the two characters really deciding that they were for each other. And this is related to the other question, which is acting without dialogue. I mean, I don't think I realized until the second time I saw the film, oh, there's no dialogue, which is kind of amazing because it felt so narrative all along. So what was like that for you, both as an actor, but then I guess because you're also a producer, and it seemed like you're very collaborative over the design of the film.
Yeah, kind of how this film came about was we work together very often. We're huge fans of each other, and it's kind of like our love story in a way, of how we're just two weirdos who found each other and found friendship and kinship in one another. And so we were talking about what we wanted to do next, and she brought this idea to me, and I was like, yeah, I love it, let's do it. And I wasn't initially thinking that I would act in it, especially because of the dance element. I'm not very comfortable with that, but Chanel was like, you have to do it. I was like, okay, I guess I'll do it. Yeah, that's how that came about. And then I don't actually remember if we ever, I don't remember how we talked about there not being any dialogue in the film.
Yeah,
I don't think it was a decision that we really talked.
No,
it just happened, and then I really don't feel like I remember any conversation that we had about making this decision. We just did it, and then
we blacked out making this.
Yeah, we apparently blacked out making this film. I don't feel. I mean, I know it must have been a conscious decision, but I don't remember that conversation. Do you?
I just know that I wanted to challenge myself and make a film without dialogue. I feel like dialogue is actually where I feel most comfortable, so I wanted to challenge myself and see, could I tell a story without words?
I vaguely remember this now. Yes. And I think this film also was us challenging each other to do something that scared us. So Chanel originally brought the idea to me to direct, and after hearing her talk about it, I was like, I think you need to direct it. And this is actually her directorial debut, and I think she killed it.
Wow.
And she kind of in turn was like, okay, then you need to like star in it. And I was like, no, I think that's not it. And she was like, no, you need to. And so then I think now I'm kind of remembering with the whole challenging yourself without dialogue, I was like, yeah, we should do that then, because she is a really, really gifted writer, and her dialogue is very strong. So I mean, I think this just goes to show you how talented she is as a writer and creator, even without the words. And I think as far as acting in it is concerned, I mean, the characters were so rich and the story was so deep and meaningful for both of us that it wasn't really a challenge to act, because all of the feeling was there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the lack of dialogue actually suited the setting and the story. It almost gave it a pantomime effect, or it evoked sort of kind of almost the Charlie Chaplin era a little bit. So I thought it was great. On another less charming light note is the ending of Poser, which I've been dying to ask you about, because on the surface it feels like this woman has been craving kind of acceptance by this kind of white male modeling apparatus, and she becomes a freak of nature in some ways through this violent means. But on another level, when she's there in front of the camera, she doesn't just seem like a victim to that system. There's something about her that's still a little dangerous, still kind of unsettling. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about the choices you made in that ending.
Yeah, I think that the ending really just stems from because we're so conditioned to, just based on what we grew up on in the media, at least here in the West, right? That idea is pretty much deep-seated. I think even if she's aware of it, and especially this is just coming from my experience as well, it's really hard to kind of separate yourself, even if you're aware of, how those ideas have penetrated you, and you can resist it, but I think it's always going to be there to a certain extent. So it's really just like a heightened version of that, at least the way I chose to tell it in a genre story form. So yeah, that's essentially what I was going for.
I also wanted to point out the sequence where it's the digital camera's preview scene, or she's looking at the empty seat, and all we see is the little monitor, the display in the camera. That's kind of this remarkable moment where the tension keeps building and building and building. So how did you come up with designing that scene or that device?
Yeah, in terms of designing it, it was scripted, as this set piece that, I was hoping to build toward. And then in terms of designing the shots, I had a shot list. It was very meticulous. We shot it, in every size that we could with my DP, Sonny Wang. So we worked together and just kind of basically, you hear it all the time, but we edit it before we even shoot the film in a way. So we knew we had all the pieces we needed to kind of ratchet, as much attention as we could in that moment. Yeah.
I wanted to start opening it up to audience questions, but we will keep the conversation going. Don't be shy.
Yeah.
So in this format, a short film, how do you approach kind of conceptualizing what you want to say, given that you want to say it in a fixed amount of time? I don't know if you do longer features, but how does that factor into kind of the conceptualization of the idea, the script, all that?
On my end, I think the short form is just a distillation of the theme I wanted to tackle, in some ways, but also I knew I wanted to make something that was, entertaining to some extent in terms of we experienced it being a horror film. I wanted to just kind of use it as an exercise to can I build a set piece? Can I kind of build toward it? Can I release that tension, etc. But also just to tell a story that can deliver the theme as efficiently as possible. At least that's from my end of it.
I'll be honest, I was not thinking about how long it would be at all. If you know me and Victoria, we like to cut. Like if we could, I'd probably cut all my scenes out, but that wouldn't make any sense narratively. So I think, I don't know if that's sort of my naivete as sort of being a newer filmmaker, that I'm not necessarily thinking too much about the future in that way. So I think it's actually helped me. But yeah, I'm naive. And I say that's helping me right now.
There was one more question I saw.
Yeah, just wondering, what's your budget for everybody of the entire film?
20,000, I think.
On our end, it's around 20K for this one.
Yeah, same.
Okay, how'd how'd you get funded? How'd you get the 20K?
This was self-funded, essentially, yeah.
We did crowdfunding.
Yeah, it was a combination of self and crowdfunding. So thank you to everyone who supported us.
Yeah, I feel like this is why filmmakers are our heroes, because you make these beautiful stories without kind of funding. You know, you kind of have to dig into your pockets or dig into your community to make it happen. And the results are really amazing. So kudos to all of you for like hanging on to that and making sure it happens. I feel like this speaks to your two working relationships because I can totally tell you two are friends and that your creative collaborations are very fluid. So can you speak to us a little bit about that kind of creative friendship? You kind of rolled with a big crew too, and I got the same vibe. You all are working on projects together. Yeah, share with us that story.
We're delusional. I think.
Yes.
I think we need that. I think that's literally the only way we've been able to get through any and every one of our projects is that I'm like, I have an idea. And she's like, okay.
Can I tell a story? The project that we did right before this was a mini series, and it was 6 of us. Yeah, 6 of us acted, shot. We had no crew except for one person to run the camera, and we did sound and costumes and music, everything ourselves, and it was the most delusional thing ever, and somehow we finished it. And so I think, like, starting from that place, that wasn't the first time we worked together, but starting from that place of just like, we have an idea, we love each other, we want to shoot it with the people that we love. It's like the purest form of filmmaking, and we've forged some really strong friendships from that. And Chanel and I we started out friends, but I think we've definitely grown in our friendship because we've been working together on like the most delusional projects. This is probably the most sane project we've done, and yeah.
Can I add to that comment? I looked into the filmography a little bit, and there's this one title I had to share that you both worked on, ABG Heist, Morning After Gone Wrong. Kind of says it all.
That was my project. Yes, that was a comedy, a spoof on The Dark Knight and a one-night stand.
I saw a lot of similar credits to Color Me Wicked. So, Allan, I wanted to ask you about your visual style for this film because it felt like you had some strong visual references. Would you want to share any of those or films that you were thinking about as you put this together?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot for sure. Whether subconsciously or like consciously, I think in some ways, I definitely was watching some Brian De Palma films prior to going to production with it. So some of the framings and just the way he builds set pieces. Was something I was studying, so I'd probably say, he was right up there for sure.
I have to ask you about the dark room and the digital camera cognitive dissonance. Because I felt like the dark room is such a callback to those kinds of thriller films, I thought that was really lovely. But then there seemed like a very explicit moment with digital camera, like in that heightened scene. So I was wondering if you were thinking about these two different kinds of media in a certain way, or if you were just sort of loving it all.
Yeah, because it's indirectly, I think from an editor standpoint, like photography is a big part of it, but also I was just indirectly using the form that I'm making the film about to heighten that moment. And also to me, like the darkroom stuff was just a way to kind of physically show, okay, this is, it is a darkroom, but it's also like her psychological cave in a way. It's like, okay, where she can be alone and where, she sees all these photos she's taken and her relationship with these subjects and how it's affecting her, as a person. So yeah, all those things are culminating in that photo set piece, I guess.
All right, keep the hands coming if you've got questions. Yep.
I wanted to ask, I haven't heard of your, I haven't seen any of your previous films. I'm completely new to you all as directors. Have you worked on these kinds of like thriller, these raw, bloody kinds of films before? And if, I also wanted to ask if you preferred writing and directing for the more comedic side of filmmaking or for more the tragedy side of filmmaking?
I love this question because actually I feel like, Allan, you had these little jokes in there that were very layered in subtly. So I do see the dry comedy in your film.
Yeah, in terms of the satirical moments, I felt was appropriate in terms of the subject matter and to deliver the theme in a way that wasn't necessarily too heavy-handed. At least that was just my intent. In terms of working on other genre films and thrillers and horror films, producer Matthew B. Higgins here, who helped produce Poser, he's a horror director, so I've produced a lot of his projects, so I've definitely learned a lot working on his films. Yeah.
Again, I saw it as a romantic comedy. So I didn't even know that it was coming off as a thriller. We had like a private cast and crew screening, and somebody came up to me after. He was like, I did not know that you like to make thriller. I was like, I didn't know either. And so I think the only way that I can sort of define this genre to me, like the violence of it all, is sort of like, you guys ever heard of like the term, like the phrase cuteness aggression? Like when you see something so cute, you just want to. That's how I feel like about this film, or that's how I feel like these characters feel about each other. They're like, I love you so much. Let me just, I'll do anything for you. That's my answer. Yeah, I'd literally kill for you. Yeah.
I saw makeup reminded me of the Raggedy Ann doll a little bit. So I wanted to ask about the art direction and production design, because that was such a treat in your film. It had Mad Hatter vibes, so many different references. So I was wondering if you wanted to talk about that.
Oh my goodness, I would love to bring our costume designer, John De Peralta, and our production designer, Laura DeLuna, down. And could they speak on behalf of the film? Yeah.
And while they're coming down, just also there we have our DP is up there, and our composer, and one of our actors as well. So yeah, we roll deep. But I mean, every single piece that, every single person that came on just helped make this what it was, and it was great.
Victoria, while you have the mic, how did dance happen? Because it sounded like you don't have a dance background. But then Chanel said you're dancing. So why was dance such
No, she's being modest.
Well,
she can dance. She's just shy.
I think the dance is different in the Midwest than it is in Southern California. So I come from the Midwest, and I danced there, and then I moved here, and I met Chanel through dance. But they're all very talented, and I just dabble. So anyway, dabble.
Hi, I'm Laura DeLuna. I was the PD on the film. The question was about
kind of the production design was beautiful.
Oh, thank you so
Costumes
much.
and makeup were amazing. So, and there seemed to be so many different references. I got Mad Hatter, I got Bohemian, I got so many different things. So I was just wondering if you could talk about that process.
Yeah, honestly, like I'm really there to just help world build, and they did an amazing job finding the location. So it was really about set dressing. I was able to collect a lot of art from friends. A lot of it was borrowed, and we just had a lot of fun dressing the set. And I think for me, I dress the set, and then as we're going frame by frame, it's kind of each frame is its own painting, and we're kind of adjusting as we go. But it was really fun to kind of build everything as we're going, and a lot of us have worked together a lot in the past, so it was definitely very collaborative. And we're used to. Like, we've worked together a ton, worked with Chanel and team a ton, so a good time.
Hello, I'm John DePeralta. I'm the costume designer.
Yes, you are.
I have a partner, Zoe, who is not here today. But I think Chanel, we met at a coffee shop. She showed me the deck, and it had all these like incredible images and fashion references. And I think the main reference for the two characters, Eileen and Lizzie, were clowns. They're supposed to be clowns, and I think the patrons were, like, what was the reference for the patrons?
Oh, it was giving, God, what is that? Hunger Games.
Hunger Games. Oh yeah, like District 1. Just really elitist, and I think it took place in a world that didn't quite exist yet, and I think I had a lot of fun pulling and extracting all these ideas from Chanel and her board and what she wanted to create, and she kind of created this outlet where it was like a blank canvas. Like, it could really take place anywhere, anytime, and I really ran with that with my partner. I found references from all over, from fashion, from old films, music videos, and I think a lot of the magic came during the fitting with Lizzie, with Chanel, and Victoria. We kind of just got a bunch of clothes that we could find within like a day or two, and we just threw things on, and that's kind of where the magic and the characters came alive. Oh yeah, so Lizzie, both Lizzie and Eileen actually, the reason why they both have like all these weird eccentric pieces is they're supposed to be souvenirs from the people that they've killed along the way. Yeah. Yeah. There's a point shoe on Lizzie's corset, and the gloves that are Lizzie's earrings. Yeah.
That's why they didn't match.
Yeah. Exactly.
Love the backstory.
Yeah.
We have time for maybe one or two more questions, if anybody has any.
I have a question.
Two options. First option is, did anything surprise you along the way in terms of making your films? Or alternatively, did anything make the final cut that you weren't originally intending when you wrote your film?
Ooh.
I gotta think about this for a second. I'm sorry.
There was a whole part that did. Oh, yeah.
There's like an entire scene or sequence that got cut, so that surprised me in a good way though. Like, I think if anyone here makes films, you know, like, you're cutting things all the time, but there was an entire sequence where, you know, like, her character comes in and you see that all the people have died, and then at some point we rewind the whole film back to the top and we see it from my character's POV, watching her go through everything in the beginning. And then we realized in the edit, we're like, we don't need this. It's actually stronger if we watch her, that extreme close-up, watching her realize that I've killed everyone for her, instead of using all these extra scenes in order to tell the story. So again, we like to cut a lot of stuff. So, I mean, I guess, yeah, I think what surprised me was like, wow, I can actually still tell a story by doing less. Yeah.
In terms of surprises, I think this is my first time like working with special effects, blood and gore, you know, so it was definitely a learning curve. Our special effects makeup artist, Kelton Ching, fantastic job, you know. I learned a lot through him in terms of how to rig and how to plan and shoot for it and everything. So yeah, just a grateful experience in terms of finally being able to work with fake blood and all that stuff, it was a lot of fun.
So the second part of the question was, what made into the final cut that you had not planned for? Is that right?
Yeah. I think okay. So the original script had a different ending, and there was a lot of rearranging in the edit. Long story short, basically there's probably 2 or 3 scenes that were cut out, and the ending that you see right now was originally supposed to be like the midpoint. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds of that, but essentially just got some feedback, and just this seemed to be the most effective ending and said the most in the shortest amount of time. So yeah, shout out Mark, who, one of my producers, who gave that note.
Good note.
Added to the film that surprised me.
Anything that made the final cut.
That you didn't expect would be there when you first conceived of the film. I think that was your.
Yeah.
No, to be honest, everything that's in there that you see was intentional.
That's conceived.
Yeah, was conceived. I don't think there was anything. I wouldn't put anything in there that I don't feel like belonged in there. Again, like
Most of what just cuts.
most of the time we cut stuff. We never add stuff back in.
I love hearing all the process shots, process conversations, kind of peeking behind the curtain. I unfortunately have to close out the Q&A, but I wanted, before we left, to hear about your future projects or what's going to happen next with the film, so that we can come out and support.
My next short that I hope to make is actually more in line with my previous film, with Hailey, which was more golden hour, a little bit more, definitely more grounded than throat slitting and stuff like that. Yeah, that's hopefully the next thing I shoot in terms of short form.
Do you want to share yours? Sure. I caught the producing bug on this, so I'm producing now, and I'm working on another. Well, I guess not another, but I'm working on a real genre horror film. As this was not. We didn't really think this was horror or thriller. We thought this is a comedy. So, so I'll be producing a horror film.
I'm in post for another short that we shot over the summer called Book Club. Also, shout out to Jamuelle, our DP, for shooting that. It's sort of, think like Blair Witch, but comedy. It's about a group.
Oh my god.
It's okay, let me tell you. Let me tell you what it's about. It's about a group of women who gather for a book club, and then things take a violent turn when one of them reads ahead.
Oh, spoilers.
So that's the last thing that I wrapped. I'm also currently developing a buddy comedy feature with my writing partner, Julie Zahn, who is also in this film. So yes, that's what we're working on.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to give a big shout out to Julie Zahn, who used to be one of our volunteers and festival folks, as well as a Yellow Power Ranger, our favorite. So I know. So everybody, thank you so much for sticking it out, and thank you for the amazing conversation. We have 8 more days of incredible films. We actually have 170 films this year. So I hope you get to squeeze every last drop of this beautiful fruit that is called San Diego Asian Film Festival. And tomorrow is a huge day filled with films, filled with Q&As, lots of opportunities. We have lots of people who are ready to give you recommendations. If you need any, you can come find me afterwards. And let's have a good time together. Thank you, everyone.